So first, let's start with a basic overview of the tax rate setting process. So it begins with your resolution drafting, which you now do in the portal. This gets combined into your proposed budget, which contains your appropriations and estimated revenues. This moves forward after your vote to be the 42, your appropriations as voted, and your re-estimated revenues. This then goes out to the county apportionment, which then ties into the tax rate setting. Now, at the very end of the process, you have your MS-45, which, as we all know, this is the financial summary for the county at the end of the fiscal period. So this is what we are going to focus on today, the MS-45, which has recently been migrated into the portal. So we will talk about an overview of the process, an overview of the interface. I'll show you a live demonstration of the interface, and then we'll go through the submission process and talk about printing forms. And again, this will be recorded and posted on the help page. So if you want to go back and refer to it when you're actually filling out the form, it will be available to you. So process overview. We're all familiar with the MS-45 filed by each county every year. Municipalities and schools have a version of this form that they file as well. And it's a report of your final expenditures, revenues, and fund equity for the fiscal period. Well, now the form will be filed within the portal. So the PDF will no longer be available, will no longer be used. Everything will be generated in the portal. So I just want to walk through section by section and talk about what is a little bit different, and we'll look at this in the software later as well. So the general fund expenditures and revenues, no change there. This will be all the same account codes that you're used to and familiar with. Your appropriations and estimated revenues will be auto-populated because remember, we have all of those in the portal already. So we'll be able to bring that in. And we'll show the revenues from municipal property taxes separately. And we'll take a look at that in the portal specifically. Something that's different is that the balance sheet must balance for submission. And what we mean when we say that is the difference of your expenditures and revenues must equal the difference in beginning and ending fund equity. And that's highlighted right there at the bottom of the MS-45 on the right. So basically, that difference between your expenditures and revenues, if that's a negative, we expect to see that coming out of your fund equity to balance that out. If it's a positive, we expect to see that going into your fund equity. So it will force that balance. It will not let you submit until that does balance. The long-term debt schedule, no change here. This is all the same field that you're used to. We did add a feature which you will not get to use this year, but will be beneficial next year, that all of your long-term debt will roll forward to the next year. So you won't have to re-enter all of your long-term debt items. They will appear for you already. One of the biggest changes at the end of the MS-45, there used to be a complete separate section for expenditures and revenue summary for all other funds and a corresponding balance sheet. Both of those sections have been removed as they were not used for anything through changing business practices. Okay, so let's walk through the process interface, and we'll do it first in the PowerPoint here, and then we'll move forward and we'll actually take a look in the software. We'll show you how it works. So to get to the interface, you simply click on the Financial tab and then select Continue next to the MS-45 Review. This is a tabbed interface, and it gives you access to all of the same form elements that you're used to. So you have your Home tab, which contains your auditor information, your preparer information. Then you have your expenditures and revenues, a long-term debt tab, and a balance sheet. And each of these high-level tabs have sub-tabs under them, which we will take a look at. So on the home page, basically it's asking if you have any emergency expenditures, and it's asking for your audit firm if you're using one and who's preparing the form. So the home tab is pretty basic. Moving forward to the expenditures and revenues tab, this is where you enter your expenditures and revenues. And as you can see, the prior year appropriations and estimated revenues are brought in for you and they're not editable. So you don't have to worry about gathering those, they'll be put in right for you. So here is where you would enter your actual expenditures and actual revenues. There's also a space to put a reason. So if you have overspent a line or got dramatically more revenue than you had anticipated, you can put a reason in there, and that will go to your advisor at DRA and probably stop a question coming back from them perhaps on what was going on. There's also a special and capital fund line at the bottom of the table, which we'll take a look at in the interface and talk about that. The long-term debt tab, this is where you put in your long-term debt. Pretty straightforward. Next year, all of the data that you put in this year will appear with the end of year balance switching over to the beginning of year. So that'll all be populated in for you. The balance sheet interface contains all of the information that you're used to. It has subtabs for assets, liability, and fund equity. And next year, your beginning of year will be populated with the end of year from this year. So as you move forward, more of this work will be done for you as the portal will start having more of this information available. This also has spaces for explanation. So if you want to put a note as to what's going on with that line, you can do so there. And then down at the bottom, there is a worksheet for that balancing that we talked about. So we'll take a look at that in the interface as well. Okay, so let's go ahead, and I'm actually going to log into the interface here. And this is on our test server, so none of this is real for us. I'm just going to use COAS as my example. So once again, we will go to the Financial tab, or clicking Continue here next to Financial Home gets you to exactly the same place. We will go to 45 Review. And here is the interface that we were just talking about. So it pulled in some information here, and I just have sample data in here for us. If we go over to our expenditures and revenues, all the same account codes that you're used to, and this functions just like how you build your budget. So you can go to the various tabs here to get access to the different account codes, and you have all of your revenue account codes. So the first thing I just want to talk about here briefly, you'll notice all of our appropriations are brought in for us. And we have this capital fund and special revenue fund data entry area that we can put in down here. So you can account for these funds over here. This will help you to balance. If I go over to the revenue side, one thing I'd like everyone to be careful of is make sure that you put in your municipal assessment. So the taxes that you're collecting for your from your municipalities, make sure you put that in here. This will help you to balance out. We noticed that this was sometimes omitted from folks' forms, so just be aware that this is where you'd put in the assessment for your municipalities. And of course, you wouldn't have this in your estimated revenues on your 42. So these numbers, these subtotals wouldn't be comparable unless we added in that municipal assessment to get our totals at the bottom line. So that's what I was mentioning before, that the property taxes on the estimated revenue side are shown separately and then added in to be the total general fund revenue so that these bottom line numbers are comparable, since the reporting on the 42 contains that municipal assessment. So that's how that is broken out. And just don't forget to account for your municipal taxes raised over there. If I go into long-term debt, we have some long-term debt items here, and again, these will roll forward. This is all editable. These values are calculated for you. So you can add new lines right here with long-term debt and put them in as you need to, and you can remove them by using the X if you need to as well. So long-term debt, it's all the same information. And then if we go into the balance sheet, you have all the same information, same account codes that were traditionally on your balance sheet are available here. Our assets, our liabilities, and our fund equity. So all of the same tabs on the balance sheet that you're used to. We give you a couple of auto-calculated numbers here. And then down at the bottom, this is that balance sheet reconciliation. This is what we're forcing to balance. So if we take our total revenues and total expenditures and get our net change, that net change should equal the difference in fund equity. So in this fictitious example, we are negative $24.99, and our fund equity also went down by $24,990. So it tells us right here, our fund balance difference is equal to the expenditure difference. So in our fictitious example, we overspent $24,000, and that came out of our fund equity, which makes complete sense. So that is the balance that it's going to be looking at. And again, that's driven by the expenditures and revenues and our fund equity tab over here. So if you're not balancing, you want to be looking in these two areas where you've forgotten something. As you're doing the data entry, just general controls here, your save and recalculate will save all of your data and do all of the calculations in the form for you. So you don't need to do this all at once. You can come in and start it and then save your progress and come back in and finish it. We do have the MS-45 report here, which this will be system report just like your budgets and your 42. So of course this is exportable to all of the standard formats like all the other reports in the system. So this will get all of the data out for you. Very familiar looking, exactly like the 45 PDF. And you can export it to Excel, PDF, Word. PDF is the easiest for printing if you just want to print it off, but some people also use Excel or Word if they want to add particular notes. You will notice there's a giant draft watermark on here. And we'll talk about that in just a minute as we move into the preparation of the form and the submission process. So I'm just going to switch back over to my PowerPoint, and we'll have some time for questions here in just a moment. So preparation and submission. So you have to be a quote unquote county administrator, and that's from a user perspective in the portal. So every county is set up with an administrator level user, and they can do data entry and submission. There are other county users. The next level down is just a regular user, and users can do data entry, but they cannot submit. We have another user level specifically for use with the 45 and the 535, and that is for your auditors. A number of entities, schools, municipalities, and counties actually have their audit firms prepare their MS-45 for them, and the portal does account for that. So basically, there's a special auditor workflow, and the auditors are allowed limited access for data entry, and their submission actually will submit it to the county for review. So let's talk about that a little bit more. And if you don't use a preparer, if you prepare the form yourself, you can completely disregard this. It won't make any difference to you at all. So if you would like to have your audit firm have access, just send us an email saying who your auditor is and that you'd like them to have access to fill out your 45 for you. So they can fill out the form just like a regular user. And when they submit it, they'll complete their auditor preparation, and that will notify you that the form has been prepared. At that point, you can log in, review, edit, and submit the form. And again, we'll look for an email from somebody at the county requesting that a particular audit firm be given the access to the county. So if we look at the workflow, your preparer, if you're using one, would go in and prepare the 45. They would submit it to you, and at that point, it's best for them to print off a draft 45. And the audit firms are all familiar with this. They've done it quite a bit. But that would become their record of officially what they prepared and sent off to you. It goes off to the county. You'll get an email notifying you that the preparation is complete. And you can review, edit, and then submit the final document to DRA. So there are a couple submission requirements. If you have expenditures on a line that has zero appropriations, that will require you to put in a reason. If you spent more than the line, that does not require you a reason. But if it is a zero in appropriation and you did have expenditures, it will require a reason for that. As we talked about, the balance sheet must be balanced. And that is, again, the difference in your revenues and expenditures must be equal to the difference in your fund equity. So once again, if you spent more money, that money should be coming out of your savings account, essentially, to simplify. If you do not balance, you can still save your progress, but it won't let you submit. And you can see that red message on the bottom right of the slide there, fund balance difference is less than expenditure difference. So it'll tell you what the issue is, and then you can correct that before submission. You can print the draft at any time. It will just have that draft watermark on it. So the workflow that we look for is just like the other forms within the portal. Once you are completely done, you will submit it to DRA, and then you can print off the report for signature. So what we're looking for there is the submission will lock any editing of the form, so the values will be finalized. That draft watermark will then go away, and it'll be ready for your signatures. So you can print that out, get the signature, signatures, and then upload the signed copy of the MS-45, and that will complete your submission process. Pretty straightforward there, and it works exactly like the budget and the 42. If you do submit by accident and you need to revise it, just give your advisor an email or a call, and that can be reversed for you so that you can go back in and correct any errors that you have. DRA can also request a resubmission. If there's something that they notice an error that they would like you to correct, send it back to you for a resubmission, and that would just follow the same process. So I already showed you the report. We'll stop for questions here in just a minute. There are a couple of resources available to you, and I do want to just highlight the help tab, or the help button, within the application is actually very useful. It goes off to our support page where it has all kinds of help videos. This is where the recording of this training will be. So you have all kinds of help available to you here. And this is also where you can submit support tickets to us if you have something that needs to be resolved. So a few different resources that are available to you. Your advisor at DRA is, of course, a resource. Municipal Supervisor Bruce Knurr, who's here in the room with me, and technical support here at Axiomatic, which the fastest way is email. That goes out to all of us, or you can dial up on the phone too. That's fine as well. And the distinction between when you call DRA and when you reach out to technical support, if you know what you want to do, but you cannot do it in the portal, you can't make it work, you're having trouble logging in, anything like that, that would be tech support. If you have a question about where you should be recording certain funds, how come your form's not balancing, which account codes you should use, that type of thing, that would be a question for DRA. So we stay out of the technicalities of the administrative rules and the account codes and all of that stuff, but we're here to certainly help you with any technical issues that you have using the software.